This is Gaming Through the Ages, and today I'm counting down my picks for the top 10 games on the Sega Genesis. While the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, as it's known in other regions, has significantly more than 10 stellar games, I want to keep the list contained to a handful of great experiences that reflect my own time with the system. As such, these are all games I have played through to completion, and many of them are wrapped in personal nostalgia. As an aside, this list will not contain any Japanese exclusive games for Sega's 16-bit machine, as I plan to relegate those to a separate list. Without any further ado, let's pop in a Game Genie and cheat a little bit with number 10 by placing the Sega Genesis 6-pack in the first slot. The Genesis 6-pack came packaged with the Model 2 Genesis my siblings and I received in our youth, and was our introduction to games on the platform. I have often referred to this as the best of early Genesis compilation cartridge, and would be remiss not to include it here due to the blend of high quality and low price. A mixture of several different genres, the 6-pack includes action platformers Sonic the Hedgehog and Revenge of Shinobi, a classic arcade racer with Super Hang-On, a colorful puzzle game in Columns, and two classic beat-em-up games, Golden Axe and Streets of Rage. Especially fun for multiplayer due to those last three games, my siblings and I spent hours playing the 6-pack, and the menu music will be forever burned into my memory. Next up at the number 9 spot is another nostalgia-laden gem with Disney's Aladdin. While the game had many different versions released, most tend to agree that the Genesis version was its peak. This game featured wonderfully replicated music from the movie, splendid animation, and a difficulty that was just right to allow a youngling to see through the whole game and experience a sense of accomplishment upon facing off against Jafar. The blast processing shines with number 8, Metallic Uniframe Super Hybrid Armor, better known as Musha. Musha is an entry in the much acclaimed Aleste series of shoot-em-ups, and believe you me, as more top 10 lists drop on the channel, other games and compiles venerated series will make an appearance. Featuring the gameplay style common of the series, the player's ship can utilize a variety of weapons and a main gun increasing in power. Similar to Gradius, Musha also features smaller drone ships which can be rotated around the player and shoot in multiple directions. The fast-paced gameplay of Musha is elevated significantly by an outstanding heavy metal-inspired soundtrack and gorgeous sprites. Make no mistake, there is a treasure trove of fantastic shoot-em-ups on Genesis, but this is the one I keep coming back to. Moving on to lucky number 7 gives us Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Sonic 2 edges out the other games in the series for me due to level design, variety, and nostalgia. It's briefer than later entries in the series, and was the first time playing a Sonic game where I really experienced a grand sense of speed. Combine the introduction of the spin dash and the rush of playing the Chemical Plant Zone for the first time, and the capabilities of the Genesis really shine. While any mainline Sonic game could have made this list, and Sonic 1 is included on the 6-pack, I had to include Sonic 2 because it's the Sonic game I still find most fun to pick up and play through its entirety. Next up at number 6 we have another very personal pick with the inclusion of Splatterhouse 3. The Sega Genesis was home to a great number of beat-em-up games, but several of them were single player, which always bothered me as I feel like these games are most in their element when played together with friends. Splatterhouse 3 manages to be a standout beat-em-up despite its single player nature, as it includes some elements uncommon to the genre. The game allows the player to explore different rooms of a manor while a timer counts down during each stage. While the player is rewarded for exploring, the story changes depending on the state of the timer upon stage completion. This added significantly more replayability than was present in most beat-em-ups of the era. The game is also delightfully violent. We're halfway through at number 5, which happens to be a fantastic entry in one of my favorite series of all time, Castlevania Bloodlines. Having grown up with the NES Castlevania games, but jumping into the 16-bit era with the Genesis, it came as a surprise when I learned there was a Castlevania game on the system. Bloodlines featured two characters from the get-go, which allowed choosing the traditional whip or a newly introduced spear, and different routes were accessible to the player depending on which of these characters they chose. The game takes place across lengthy stages covering several regions of Europe and features the outstanding graphics and music the series is known for. By virtue of being a good Castlevania game, Bloodlines is one of the best games to grace the Genesis. Number 4 is another formidable release from Konami with Rocket Knight Adventures. This game came as a total surprise for me personally, but is well regarded among Genesis enthusiasts, and after playing the game through to completion, it's obvious why it's held in such high regard. A beautiful platformer with a unique jetpack mechanic, Rocket Knight Adventures has stunning graphics, huge levels, innovative boss battles sprinkled throughout, and tons of gameplay variety to keep the game feeling fresh during each and every playthrough. From kart sections to shoot 'em up sections and just about everything in between, Rocket Knight Adventures will keep players on the edge of their seats, clamoring to see what the game throws their way next. We are down to number 3, which is an absolutely classic Japanese RPG, Phantasy Star 4. The last hurrah of the Phantasy Star single-player story-driven experiences, Phantasy Star 4 wrapped up plot elements of the previous 3 games while streamlining some of the gameplay experience. A fantastic 16-bit JRPG that was often overshadowed by the plethora of 16-bit RPGs released during the same time frame, Phantasy Star 4 can certainly go toe-to-toe with the likes of Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. Phantasy Star 4 features a rich and immersive world, relatable characters, and classic JRPG gameplay with great sprites and animation throughout. The Phantasy Star games on Genesis even featured a system whereby players could create macros to circumvent the game feeling too grindy or repetitive for players so inclined. If you are a fan of classic JRPGs and have a Sega Genesis, you owe it to yourself to play Phantasy Star 4. Coming down to the nitty-gritty, we have Streets of Rage 2 taking the number 2 slot on the list. Often considered the quintessential beat-em-up game, certainly on Genesis, Streets of Rage 2 is the most fun I have ever had playing a beat-em-up. The game shines when played 2-player, and features much of the same gameplay and pickups from the original, with just enough improvements to make it feel overhauled. The environment, effects, and music all come together to make Streets of Rage 2 an atmospheric delight for the senses. Finally, the number 1 place is taken by none other than Shinobi 3: Return of the Ninja Master. Shinobi 3 is unexpectedly miles ahead of other entries in the series. The game features some of the best graphics and sound on Genesis, accompanied by fluid gameplay which makes traversing levels extremely fun. The player can run, double jump, wall jump, and slide through levels with surprising ease while throwing out shurikens to fell enemies along the path. The player also has access to several ninjutsu from the start, allowing difficult encounters to be tackled in a variety of ways. Shinobi 3 may be an action platformer at its core, but features such a wide variety of gameplay throughout several stages and gives the player so many tools to approach the game in different ways that it manages to be leaps and bounds ahead of its contemporaries. Well, with that, the list of my picks for top 10 best Genesis games is complete. Are you satisfied with the entries, or are you seething with rage that I didn't include Gunstar Heroes? I wouldn't blame you, it's among the many exemplary games that didn't quite make the cut. Let me know in the comments below if you have a game that you think deserves to be played by every Genesis enthusiast, especially if it's rarely talked about. As always, thank you for watching.